Hey, this is Notser, and this is my Tier 8 recommendations for the rank season. Now, I played through pretty much every single ship, and I'm going to give you my quick thoughts on what's good, what's bad, and why I would pick it or why I wouldn't pick it for rank season. Ranked is at Tier 8 from, I believe, rank 25 to rank 11 or rank 20 to rank 11. Then it transitions to Tier 10. I will make a video on Tier 10 after I stream tomorrow. I'm going to be doing a lot of Tier 10 rank tomorrow. Check that out on my stream, twitch.tv/Notser. But let's talk about Tier 8. First up, we've got the Akizuki. The Akizuki is one of those ships where it's really awesome. I think it's great at objective control, anti-destroyer work. That is all you want in a DD for rank play. I will admit, though, you need a high-skill commander, at least 14, if not further, because it needs health, it needs inertia fusilier explosive, it needs concealment. And that's a really, really high investment. So I would only pick this if you have a really high-skill commander and you really know how to play it. It's really sluggish, so torpedoes are a threat, and it can't get to the objectives as quick as others, but it will dominate the objective if it gets a 1v1 against another DD. This won me a lot of games. Harry Wind or Hedekase, it's okay. Don't use the A hull. You need to use the B and the C hull. The A hull is the typical Japanese hull. It's got slow rate of fire, very bad against a 1v1 DD setup. B hull is the Akizuki. You want to use an Akizuki commander, obviously, for that, if you do that. And the C hull is the Benson. Benson guns are pretty good. Very good, in fact, at contesting capture points. It's an okay pick. Asashio. Asashio is a very weird pick. It all depends on what is in the queue. If there's a lot of battleships in the queue, it could be effective. If there isn't a lot of battleships in the queue, it's awful. It is terrible at playing the objective because it can't trade at all with other destroyers and cruisers. So it really relies on body spotting and just being there. And if you can't actively contribute to the game in ranked, you're going to lose more than you win, or you're not going to progress at all. That's what I've come to find. So I would really discourage this unless there's a ton of battleships in the queue, and then just wipe them out. Kagedo is okay. I think it's better than the Asashio overall. Just game to game. There could be better matchups for the Asashio, but overall, Kagedo is a Japanese destroyer. Its guns are bad against other DDs. It relies on body spotting, and it can't actively win the objectives, which is very important. The Benson's super solid. The Americans are super solid because they brawl very effectively. Very good at objective control. It can equip defensive fire if your particular server has an overabundance of aircraft carriers. I really enjoy this ship. I think it's great. The Kid as well, very good. Slightly different. I think the Benson is better for a heavier battleship meta. I think the Kid is better for a heavier destroyer meta because it has that heal, which is really nice, but it only has one torpedo launcher. So just be aware. You want to win the engagements around the capture points against DDs in the Kid. You need to be proactive. You need to be aggressive. You want to trade because you have the heal. But the Kid's super solid. Kiev. Kiev's not very good. And the reason it's not very good for ranked is it can't play the objective. It has terrible concealment. A DD with bad concealment is basically a useless DD for ranked. You need to be able to capture and you need to be able to contest. And this just can't do that. This is basically a light cruiser without radar, without the volume of fire that wipes out DDs. It's very mediocre for ranked. I would highly discourage you from pulling it. Ognivoy is a little bit better. It's got better concealment, so it can play the objective, but it only has 4 guns. So it's sort of in between a Japanese destroyer and all the other DDs. It can contest, but not very well. Better than the Kiev, but not much better. The Germans bring the Z-23. Now, the Z-23 is interesting because it has 128s, 150s. 150s are very bad against DDs. but it gives you an extra gun, and it makes you better against cruisers and battleships. You have hydroacoustic. It's not the best in class at this tier, and I'll get to that ship. I think the Z-23 is okay. It's average. Good players can make it work. Bad players will suffer in it because it's a little awkward in its turret traverse and the gun setup. I think that if you're someone who's really comfortable with the Germans, go with it. If you're not, there are other destroyers that are better. Xinjiang is interesting because it doesn't have torpedoes that can contest the objective, and that's a big deal. I didn't have any success with this, honestly. There are better Pan-Asians for this bracket. Speaking of better, Loyang. Loyang is the best DD for Tier 8 ranked because of its hydroacoustic. It is so insanely strong. I don't know why they buffed it. It was already really good, but because they buffed it, they basically made it the best at Tier 8. It controls the objective, it brawls, it contests, it's a bully, it's everything you want in a DD for ranked. Mogami is a great light cruiser. This is probably number 1 or number 2 cruiser on my list. You will wipe out DDs left and right. The only weakness is it doesn't have a heal, and it's going to be a little bit more of a glass cannon, but if you're only engaging DDs and you're going to disengage when there's no DDs, you take the DDs out, you win the game. Atago. Atago is a super solid pick for no other reason than it has heal, so it can mitigate a little bit of damage. It's not as good as the Mogami at killing other DDs, or killing DDs, it's not DD. It has the forward launching torpedoes though, and it has the heal. So I would say this is above average. Obviously Takao is the same ship. Columbia, Pittsburgh, I can't play those. New Orleans. New Orleans is the only American cruiser that you can pull, and it's not very good. It has radar, but it's 203s, and it doesn't really do that well against enemy DDs, other enemy cruisers, other enemy battleships. It's okay if it's the only radar ship you have, but there are better radar ships and better anti-destroyer ships in the game. Kutuzov is super solid. It's a light cruiser. Light cruisers are dominant in a ranked season because they can control the objectives by taking out the enemy DDs. It has smoke. It has great range on its guns. This is a super solid pick for ranked. But there is a better Soviet cruiser for ranked, and that's the Chapayev. Why? Radar. You will absolutely annihilate enemy DDs in smoke, and you're a light cruiser. There's nothing else to say. You're awesome. This is probably 1A or 1B in the cruiser meta, in my opinion, for ranked. Prince Eugen. This is a surprising pick. This is a super awesome cruiser. This is right behind the light cruisers, in my opinion. It has hydroacoustic. It has heal. It can be aggressive around the objective. It can take damage. It can use its hydro to counter DDs, and it can heal back up the damage it takes. I love this ship for ranked. It was incredibly fun, and I felt like I could mitigate damage pretty effectively. It's awesome. The Hipper is not as awesome because it's more of a glass cannon. It doesn't have heal. It has a better rate of fire, but it's not going to want to get as close to the front line as the Prince, and I just don't like it for that reason. If you got the Prince, use the Prince. If you have the Hipper and only the Hipper, okay, but you're going to take a little bit more damage, and it's going to be tougher for you. Edinburgh. Edinburgh is pretty awesome. It's a light cruiser. It has a heal. It can use smoke, and it can use radar. What's not to like about that? It's not the best light cruiser. It's not the worst. This is near the top, in my opinion, on its effectiveness. Definitely thumbs up for me. The Charles. The Charles brings up the cruiser rear, and for good reason. It's not really, doesn't bring anything to the table. It doesn't do anything of note. It's basically the New Orleans without radar. It's okay, but it's not going to win games, and you need to win games if you want to progress in ranked. The Key is okay. It's there. It's a Japanese battleship. They take a little bit more damage than other battleships because of the Citadel situation. It's got AA protection, so it should mitigate AA if there is a heavy cruiser. I have not run into it meta. Amagi is a little bit better, in my opinion, because it's going to be able to mitigate a little bit more effectively. It's got more secondaries, but it's still Japanese. I think it's mid-tier as far as battleships are concerned. The North Carolina is not mid-tier. This is top tier. It is so effective, so awesome. I love this ship. Good accuracy, great AA protection. It really does it all. No issue with it whatsoever. The Alabama is just as effective in my opinion. Because of its torpedo protection, it's a little bit more comfortable with the heavy DD meta that's going to exist in ranked play. And honestly, I would probably say this might be a little bit better in ranked play with a lot of DDs than the North Carolina. If there's not a lot of DDs in the ranked meta, North Carolina is going to be a little bit better. But this maneuvers a little bit better than the North Carolina, and it has way better torpedo protection, which is nice. Turpets, I've seen some turpets, I've played some turpets. It can work. It's good at mitigating damage, but it doesn't really have all the tools that you would want. The torpedoes are not as useful as hydroacoustic. Speaking of hydroacoustic, the Bismarck. The Bismarck is more effective because it has hydroacoustic. It can be a little bit more aggressive around the DDs. It can take them out. It can mitigate more damage. I think the Bismarck is top 3, top 4. I think the hydro puts it over the top when you consider that the Asashio is really strong. If you have to deal with that, I'm not saying you do, but if you have to, you really only have friendly, screening, and hydro as the counter. Monarch, not very impressive in ranked. I did not have the success I wanted. Had terrible RNG. It's not consistent. It doesn't win games. It might not lose them, but it's not going to win them. Gascon. Gascon is okay. It's got a weird turret setup. It's going to have to show more side than probably other battleships. It doesn't have hydro. It's okay. I think it's near the bottom from a rank standpoint. Richelieu is better in my opinion. The Richelieu is more effective. It's got forward-mounted turrets. It can hide behind islands. It's not better than the Bismarck or the North Carolina or the Alabama. Honestly, I don't think it's better than the Amagi either. It doesn't mitigate quite as much damage, but it's okay. The Roma is actually pretty fun because its turrets traverse very quickly. It can engage DDs that pop up from radar and just body spotting from teammates. It can maneuver more because its turrets traverse very quickly, so it's good at avoiding torpedoes. I think this is honestly right up there with the Bismarck. I think it's just behind the Bismarck in its effectiveness, just because hydro is going to be better if you know a DD is threatening you. But Roma's pretty good. Now, if there is a heavy aircraft carrier meta, Roma, Bismarck, Turpets, not very good. Speaking of aircraft, the Shokaku. The Shokaku is the Japanese aircraft carrier at tier 8, and she's not bad. She's not the best, she's not the worst. The Lexington is the worst aircraft carrier you can pull at tier 8. You're going to be going up against more competitive, more effective, more spotting aircraft carriers, and spotting really is what converts kills. And this only has 4 potential spotting targets, and its loadout is just not impressive. It can't deal with aircraft, it can't deal with DDs, and it can't deal with battleships as effectively. This is definitely the bottom tier aircraft carrier at tier 8. On the other side of that coin, the Enterprise is the top tier aircraft carrier at tier 8. It's got the squadron amount for spotting, it's got the effectiveness for anti-DD, anti-battleship, anti-air. It's got it all. It's really good. I was really impressed by this ship. Definitely recommend it. If you have to pull an aircraft, if you want to pull an aircraft carrier, Enterprise is the aircraft carrier to pull at tier 8. Now this isn't in a lot of people's inventory. The Graf Zeppelin. It's pretty good, but again, it's not in a lot of inventories, but it will wipe out the German and the Italian battleships like no one's business. It does so much damage with its AP, and it takes no effort whatsoever. It's just, it's a shame that it's not in more people's inventory, or it would just be hilariously stupid. Um, it's in a weird place. I know Wargaming's not selling it, and they're not going to sell it anytime soon, so you're probably not going to run into it. So don't worry about it. And that was Tier 8. Akizuki, Benson, Loyang. Those are my top 3. Loyang's number 1. Akizuki number 2. Benson number 3 as far as DDs. My top 3 for cruisers: Mogami, Chapayev, Prince Eugen. I know that's crazy, but I really loved the Prince Eugen. It was just such a breath of fresh air having that heal. For battleships, North Carolina, Alabama, and Bismarck. I think the Bismarck, just because it can mitigate a lot of damage and it has hydroacoustic to counter. It just felt right. For the aircraft carrier, top 3 is basically everything but the Lexington, but I think the Enterprise is number 1, the Graf Zeppelin is number 2, and the Shokaku is number 3. And the Shokaku and the Graf Zeppelin are pretty close in their effectiveness, and the Enterprise is on it close too. But you really can't go wrong unless you pick the Lexington. Then you're going to be having an uphill battle. And that was my overview of Tier 8 ships for rank season. I really enjoyed it. I'm up to Tier 10. I'll make a video for it as well once I check that out. I hope this was helpful for you. If you don't have one of the ships that I recommend, what would I recommend to mitigate the weaknesses? Well, try and counter the enemy DDs. Play the objective. Don't overextend. It's okay that they get the capture point off the bat. Don't die. That's the worst thing you can do. Loeyangs are going to be using their hydro, and they're going to be spotting people in smoke. Don't be one of those people that be like, I'm going to do this, damn it. You're not going to do that. Give up. Let the Loeyang and other hydros wear out. Come back and do it all over again. Cruisers, don't be spotted out by battleships. Use the islands. Take out the DDs. Be aggressive taking out the DDs. You take out the DDs, you win the game. Battleships, don't find yourself overextended and let DDs torpedo you. You need to have screeners in front of you and near you to be the most effective. Aircraft carriers, spot for your team. It's okay if you don't do any damage. Just keep the target spotted. Call out focus fire. Hopefully they'll finish them off. If you can do that and you can get a little bit of chip damage on a target with 1 or 2 successful torpedo strikes, you should basically win the game. The best way to lose a game in an aircraft carrier is to not actively engage the other aircraft carrier, though. It's all about that matchup between you two. If you're a weaker aircraft carrier captain, I would probably not pull aircraft carrier in ranked play. I hope you all have a lot of success. Enjoy rank this season. I will be streaming tomorrow, Tier 10, ranks 10 through 1, and hopefully a couple days later, I'll have a video up with my Tier 10 recommendations. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time.